Hi, and welcome to the Dangerous Skills Podcast, where we talk about life, faith, and your own personal security. I'm your host, Charles Powell. Today, our guest is a man named Marcus Torgerson. Now, who is Marcus Torgerson? He's many things. One of the things is he's the author of Be a Man, What the Firetruck Does That Even Mean? And that's such an interesting cover and such an interesting title. We're going to unpack this really well for you today. But the other thing, besides being an author, Marcus Torgerson is a man on a journey. He's on a journey in life. He's on a journey of self, learning and knowing self. He's on a journey of exploring his relationship and continuing a relationship he made some time back with Jesus Christ. And it's just an absolute pleasure to have him with us today. Marcus, it's so great to have you on the Dangerous Skills Podcast. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to this opportunity.
Yeah, well, it's a dangerous space to be here in because you never know what questions we might ask. You never know where this thing may go. But what I love about you, and today we're going to be talking about Be a Man. What the Firetruck does that even mean? We're going to be talking about this book that's been my bedside table reading. It's almost been like devotional. You know, it's really good place to go to. And I'll tell you, for a lot of people, I don't know how you read books, but I think a lot of men and women would benefit from this by buying it and making it a bedside table thing, because the way you wrote it was so smart. And I know you're going to say it's just the way I could write it, but the way you wrote it was so smart, Marcus, because it comes off that way.
I will happily receive that comment. I'm thankful that you enjoyed it.
Why did you write it?
Because God told me to.
Okay, that's good.
I was in the shower, and it literally just, boom. I'd had a challenge with, there was a guy online from, I think, pretending to be from Boston, and he would always say stuff like, I don't know, eat nails and spit them out, be a man, and everything was about be a man, and it irritated me so massively. And then I was in the shower, and then all of a sudden, be a man, and then he just spilled out, and then like a few months later, that book was finished and on its way to being edited.
The Spirit of God is involved. I mean, there are times when you're like, God, is this you? But there are times when the Spirit of God's involved, when it runs out of you like water. And since you were in the shower, you had to determine, is this running out of me like water, or is this like water? I don't know. I want to jump right in. I want to go to chapter 5. When you get kicked in the cojones, I'll go with my Spanish. What is the most important aspect of this chapter? Because I think it's important, because people do this whole spit nails, and being a man is this thing. And my life has been defined at times by violence because of the work that I did, human trafficking, other things, fighting it, war on drugs, all the other things. Violence was a part of my life. You teach self-defense. You've done a lot of fighting. So at the end of the day, that ultimate situation is getting kicked there. So what does that mean for the purposes of your book?
It really, when you scrape away to the bare bones of it, it means because life is going to continually kick you in the private regions, it's about getting back up. Okay. Get up and take a step forward. Regardless of, and most of the listeners here have had some experience in their life of what it's like to be mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually kicked in the groin, where you're on the ground in a fetal position. And the answer is always going to be get up and take a step forward.
Well, that's great. Well, that actually puts me in mind of getting up. So some people try to define manhood, and they're like, you're not a man unless, fill in the blank. You're not a man if or unless. So what kind of negative male role models did you see or have in your life, or have you seen that help you, redefine manhood, but in a better way? What were the negative things you see in people?
Well, I was fortunate and unfortunate, depending on where you're at, because I'm at a stage of living in forgiveness right now. So the two men that molested me in my lifetime, it would be fair to say that they are a negative male role model.
I get it.
Right? One was my martial arts instructor. So if I wanted to cling on to negativity, I would just, and I did for decades, beat myself up about those situations. The truth is that all of us are going to have some type of negative male role model in our life, regardless of who you are in your life. There's somebody negative that's going to be male, and you make a choice. Do I decide to hold on to that in anger and rage and manifest it in that way, or do I lean on forgiveness, which is a difficult pill to swallow for most of us? I'm choosing to live in forgiveness.
Okay, so a lot of people from a spiritual religious construct, they might talk a little bit about that, because the next thing you and I are going to talk about is grace and forgiveness. But before we even get into those as constructs, let's talk about, because again, to me, forgiveness without Christ is foundationless, because it's just an esoteric thing. It's like gossamer out here. It's like something you can't put your hands on. But like for me, the whole concept of forgiveness rests upon the fact that I need Christ to forgive me for my sins and my ways. So why don't you unpack grace and forgiveness from the standpoint of you being a believer?
Grace, for those that don't know what grace is the good we don't deserve that we get anyways. Forgiveness, and I think it'll be easier for people to understand forgiveness because of the lack of ability to have forgiveness for those that have hurt you in the past. And for those that are not believers who might be listening, or even those who are believers, with forgiveness, it gives me the ability to live my life with love, joy, and peace. And these are things that are alien to most human beings. They don't know what true joy is. They don't know what peace is. We're very conditioned to anger and hatred and rage as motivators to live. When you can find the ability to forgive, which, as I wrote in that book, it's like an onion layer, man. Every time you're peeling it, and there's going to be added pain that comes with that forgiveness. But that's where the growth and grace comes into it, to help with that healing and living a life that is not made to be lived. We're not supposed to be living in hatred and anger and rage. We are supposed to be living in a love that we really can only get from Christ.
That's really interesting. And this isn't even a question I gave you. And this is the beautiful thing, is these conversations kind of become their own. They take their own life. There's hey, this has a life of its own, this whole interview. Well, okay, so let's talk about, let me be kind of authentic here for a minute. So before we came on, I was telling you about, I was having a challenging day. And I told you, as a challenging day, no matter who there might be out there, there's a part of this challenging day. The fact is that it really all comes back to me. What is God teaching me? What do I need to learn? How do I need to change? How am I being kind of pounded and then remade? I want to be that vase that people have heard of, or seen. It's a vase and it's been broken, but it's like rejoined by gold. It's refiner.
Yep, that Japanese.
Yeah, that whole thing. And so for me, every day I find myself kind of being remade, but it's not really the people that anger me or hurt me or frustrate me. It is It is really what God's doing in my life to make me a new and better man. Have you got anything on that?
Since there's everybody that's listening to this can relate to everything that you just said, because there's not a man or a woman or a child on this planet that doesn't have those moments, continual moments of feeling like you're hammered, like you're just getting hit by life. And I'm not scripturally sound, so please show me some forgiveness. But it was my understanding that Paul said to embrace those tribulations, to embrace the stresses that we have, because these are the things that give us the opportunity to grow and walk in the faith that we're supposed to have. Now, if you're a non-believer and you're like, Marcus, I have no idea what you're talking about, think of it this way. If you are getting hammered by having a bad day and you choose to let that bad day to continue to run through you so that you are now crapping on other people, it's a horrific way to live. Take that moment, ask as you did, right? I asked, Lord, what am I supposed to get out of this?
Right.
What's the lesson? And I don't have an audible voice that says, Marcus, you must walk forward. And but having that conversation with him relieves a humongous amount of the angst that's inside that life is throwing at me.
That's a great word.
And I would recommend that everybody have that conversation with God, whether you believe or not. Just ask, what's going on? Why is this happening? You'd be amazed at the answers that come.
Yeah, I was speaking with someone a while back that needs to give their heart to Christ, and they know about Christ, but they just need to surrender. And I told them, I said, I want you to know something important. God is speaking to you. You're hearing a voice in your heart, your head, you're having these feelings. You're being moved in certain ways, and you're like, where in the world where's that coming from? And I'm like, the voice of God is speaking to you. What you need to do is just speak back and say, okay, hey, I think you need to kind of address your past pain. Oh, well, where's that coming from? Well, let's talk about that. Just address it. Yeah. And so I agree.
Yeah.
And I like, again, when you talk about grace and forgiveness, I like that because I've been reading a lot in the epistles, and Paul loved to begin these things with grace and peace, grace and peace. Yeah. So when I wrote my book, Dangerous Skills, Fearing What the Night Brings, which is just out, when I wrote that book, I have an entire chapter dedicated to grace and peace. And it's basically various stories from my life where it did and didn't happen, and so draw the conclusions. But so grace and forgiveness. Just from the book standpoint, because you talked a little bit about forgiveness, just a little bit more on grace and forgiveness together.
Well, let's be honest. The subject, when even writing the chapter, my editor, God bless her, said, you must have been pouring yourself out, because that chapter has just a little more feeling in it than the other ones. When you spend your life feeling unworthy of being alive, feeling unworthy, regardless of anything, the words that were spoken to you, when you can get to a point, and it's what I'm praying, that somebody will read this chapter and understand that the lies of the past have nothing to do with the truths of today. And please give your frustrations and your anger to the Lord, so that he can transform them inside of you, so that you can actually understand what the love of God is, which is grace and is forgiveness. You can put those two words into a very simple thing. It's Jesus. Grace and forgiveness is Jesus.
Yes.
Now, you want to put other words to it, you get grace, you get forgiveness, and a whole bunch of stuff that comes with it.
Yeah.
But it's all Jesus.
Right. I like that. I like that a lot. There was another thing that and it's what's so beautiful. You have these different interviews with different people, and they pull different things out. So it's like every interview is almost like a different thing, because the book means so many different things to different people. And these are the things that it meant to me. And since it's my podcast, I can ask whatever. What about the concept of labels you don't like?
Labels is a challenge for me. It's a challenge for me only because of the fact that it limits who I'm supposed to be with that label. If I go by labels, then I am the unwanted aborted child of my mother, who's an alcoholic. That means that I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've been a horrific father. I've been a horrific husband. I've been a horrific human being who's done nothing but pain and suffering and hurt to other people. Those are labels. Okay. Well, I happen to be recently a child of God.
Yes.
I am a born-again Christian. I am a person who walks with Jesus every single day, who spent most of his life empowering other people on how to fight back against the enemy and against violence.
Yes.
All of these labels are true. They're all true. Yet they don't define me.
Right.
They don't define who I am.
Right.
To be a man, you must be this. As soon as you tell me I must be something to be a man, you've lost me, because that's unfair. You can more than likely, I'm making assumptions here, you can more than likely look at your car and, fiddle with the engine. You know where the engine is. You know what to do with it to some degree. You're familiar with how to change your oil. Maybe you might even be able to change your brakes. If a male, can't do those things with the label of being a man, all of a sudden he's less than. And I call BS. That's garbage.
Yeah.
Because it's unfair that I'm putting you in a box that you must be something because you know these things, or I judge you on your past life. Well, you must know this, that, or the other.
Right.
Instead of just accepting the human being that we have in front of us as a human being, do you know Jesus? You do know Jesus? Okay. You don't know Jesus? Hey, let's talk about Jesus a little bit. But everything else, forget labels. I got no time for it, because I want to get to know you. And I can't do that if I have a label with you.
Okay, I like that. Okay, and this won't be a label, but this will be kind of a descriptor. This is a really good time to kind of break out of a chapter and ask you about something else going on in your life. So God is obviously opening doors. He's giving you favor. You're meeting people. You're getting out there. You're doing events. And there's a person that I know that has a very high profile that recently made really nice about you and your book and all that. And I just thought that was a great thing for that person to do, because I think you're worthy of it. But I see you from time to time with a lot of these well-known, high-level former tactical operators, Navy SEALs, and all these kind of things. And you nor I were Navy SEALs, but we have done things in our lives. So tell me about what it's like. How is that happening? What is God doing to give you favor and put you in the company of these men kind of on an equal footing?
Well, I think the one thing for sure is the fact that anybody that I meet that has done something, and most of the guys that I meet they've done something in their past, but I meet them exactly where they're at right now. For the most part, all the famous special operations ninja 9000s that I've met, they bleed, crap, and cry the same as me.
Yeah.
So I don't treat them any more or better or worse. I respect what they've done, but I care about the person that I'm looking at right now in front of me.
Yeah.
And the blessing, truly the blessing for all that, the people that I've met, I can circle it back to one person, a man by the name of David Rutherford. David Rutherford, former team guy, CIA dude, huge believer in Jesus.
Nice.
2015, I think 2014, something like that, he brought a book out. Now, everything I'm about to tell you has to do with God. It has nothing to do with anything else. He writes this book, Self-Confidence, Navy SEAL's Guide or whatever. 2015, I'm lost. I go and buy the book. I read the book. It becomes my Bible. I'm not walking with Jesus at that time. I'm taking up all the information. His book, his social media presence completely transformed my verbiage.
Wow.
The way that I thought about things, the way that I spoke, the way that I acted. Now, from that, my point to this is, from that rock, the ripples from that rock that was dropped in the water, you get a sense of other people that you meet. And I was just blessed after blessed after blessed, meeting tons of military people. And for me, a military person is a military person. Whether you were tier 1
Sure.
or tier 9,
Right.
you signed on the dotted line.
Yeah. You took the
right?
trip.
You did something that I didn't.
Right.
But that man, and I will constantly bring up that man because of the impact that God knew. Marcus will learn from him. He will hear him when I won't listen to anybody else. And now, since recently David Rutherford has come back online, he took some time off, which is a blessing to me and to anybody else. But my observations, my engagements with these operators, former or current, I believe was started 10, 11 years ago because of that gentleman.
Are you surprised how many of them you meet are believers in Christ?
I'm surprised now because when back then my ears were close to Jesus. Yeah. Ironic, just a very quick little thing.
Sure.
In his book, he had basically like a 10 commandments. The enemy had such strength in my life at that time that I purposely would not read that part of the book. Now, this is my Bible. I would read it 10, 15, 20 times a day. Purposely wouldn't read it. Now, 2 years ago, I found the book. I went and I looked at it. Brother, it was 3 lines.
Wow.
3 lines. And the enemy was so strong in my life at that time that he was able to sit there and block anything. I would stop reading any book, Think and Grow Rich or any of those books. And the minute it started talking about the Lord, fast forward through it. I'm thankful that God has impacted the amount of operators or law enforcement or anybody, the voices that he has
Sure.
had that have been bold in their convictions. I'm thankful for it now because I'm praying that many ears will be positively impacted by these individuals.
That's awesome. Okay, so one of the things I get from when I've spoken with you, when I see you online, and then when I see you social media and in the book, is I see a man seeking to make sure he lives with integrity and that integrity matters and that, you don't make excuses if it's not integrity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think integrity has to be one of the most misunderstood words that we have in the English language.
Great.
And my integrity comes down to this. Am I good with God? If I'm good with God, then I'm good in general.
Yeah.
It's so amazing to me because I get to think back in these conversations, stuff that I hadn't thought about, the seeds that were planted all those years ago as a child, and and as you know, God can turn anything that's meant for evil and turn it into good. And my whole life has been that. Showing up on time.
Yeah.
I have time issues as a result of it. I need to be somewhere 2 hours beforehand or an hour. I'm working on it because it's not healthy to be that obsessed with time. However, showing up on time, looking people in the eyes, shaking hands, yes sir, no ma'am. Now I'm from Canada originally, so yes sir, no ma'am, those are not words that are in our language. So how I was able to get it put into my vocabulary at a young age, again, I can only look at God. Integrity really for me has to do more with, am I pleasing my Lord and Savior? And if so, then I'm good with it. It doesn't matter what I'm doing in this world. If it's good for God, it's great for me.
That's terrific. Another topic that I believe our viewers would be interested in hearing about, because one of the great things about your writing and your base and who you are and your approach is you have a philosophy. You seem to have, a rule of life. You have an ethos about yourself. And that's where a lot of these definitions come from. And so one of the sections in here, talks about pain. So, you might define pain for us among those other definitions in your life, and where does it derive from?
Well, as soon as you say pain, I'm sure everybody watching, listening, immediately will go to a moment, some moment in their life where physically or emotionally or something that ends with Lee was impacted negatively, right? There's no positive pain that happens. We're conditioned at a young age to respond to pain is negative.
Right.
What I'm hoping I can transform, thank you, Jesus, in my own brain and will come out to other people is for us to understand that pain is the catalyst for us to transform into something better.
Okay.
Very rarely, I don't know anybody who, when they pass something or they've had a positive experience, has come away with a lesson that has been as impactful as from something negative, a painful experience. Being molested, growing up, being told that I was not wanted, for so long to take those and dwell on them in the negative, and then to see that those things happening were a blessing, an absolute blessing. Because when I'm able to speak to somebody who says, I was told that I was never wanted, I have some relatability. When I talk to other people who have been forced to do something that they didn't want to do. Now, it doesn't matter whether that's molested, raped, whatever, any violation, anytime you've had to do something that you didn't want to do, that you did, there's stuff that comes with it. And thankfully, because of all these painful moments, I'm able to have conversations, not to give answers, but to perhaps be an ear for them to be able to be truthful and honest, which allows the Lord to work inside of them and heal them 100% so that they can go and do that to other people, because the enemy's not stopping. But God.
Yeah, but God.
But God.
In a world where pain is prevalent and pain bringers are prevalent, you use one of my favorite statements, and I hashtag it all the time, and that is, no one is coming to save you.
Yep.
I hashtag that often, and there are people that are like, well, now theologically, Jesus is there to save you, but he's there to save you. But like, people just think that the worst is going to happen and somebody's going to come riding in or whatever, or and that's not it. So unpack that statement. No one's coming to save you.
Well, what I'd like everyone to understand is, coming from a martial background, a defensive tech background, for like it is all my life, literally 46 years of my life. If there's one thing we know for sure, is when violence enters our world, it doesn't tell you ahead of time. Usually it doesn't. Real violence, not what you see in the movies. Real violence doesn't tell you it's going to happen. And when it does happen, we have to respond. However we respond, and I'm doing this without any guilt or shame. How you respond is how you respond.
Sure.
But in that response, the cavalry coming through the door, or somebody coming and helping you, I have better chance of winning the Powerball 10 times in a row.
Right.
So in that, no one's coming to save you, I encourage others to find ways for them to be their own bodyguard, hero, whatever verbiage you want to use. But be enough of someone who can speak violently back to violence, so that they can create opportunities for escape.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Hi, this is Charles Powell, and my first book in the Dangerous Skills book series is entitled Fearing What the Night Brings. It tells the story of my life undercover in the war on drugs and working as a cop in Houston, Texas. I also write about some painful childhood experiences which might begin to shed some light on why I sought out dangerous living in the first place. Buy your copy of Dangerous Skills, Fearing What the Night Brings today on Amazon.com, available in paperback, for Kindle, and an audiobook. Hey, buy 2 copies and give one to a friend. I believe that we have, like, especially in the social media world, people will go out and kind of like strike out at somebody and there's no, real response. It could be words back and forth. Somebody does that to each other in a restaurant or on the highway, something bad can happen. And people just kind of have this mindset that they're insulated, And,
Right, yeah,
but the fact is, when the worst days come, we don't know it's coming. I'll tell people, because I'm one of the people that believe, with our borders down for these past years, I honestly believe that there is a homeland attack that is going to take place on our shores. And I believe it'll be one day where, like a normal day, every once in a while I'll be with friends and I'll say, it's going to be a day just like this. It's going to be normal and everything's fine, and then everything's going to take a left turn. Everything's going to go wrong all of a sudden. And I think it's incumbent upon people to kind of carry with them sort of a mindset about these things. And like for me, I've lived my life. I have a tattoo that kind of explains my life. And it is a pocket watch, and it's set at 10 minutes to midnight. And there are 2 sevens down in it on a digital part of the dial. 2 sevens have hit, and a third one's rising. We're fixing to have a jackpot. And I have lived my life to be ready. And I've had people say, I couldn't live that way. And then what am I going to say to that? Well, they'll die that way, or be beaten that way, or be a victim of violence that way. It doesn't take anything extra out of my life. I still enjoy life as much as anybody else, but I live ready for whatever comes. And the fact is, in my life, where violence has played a factor, having been ready, I wasn't a bit surprised. I mean, I just responded. And when that, and I kind of have a threat assessment program that I teach called slot machine theory. And it basically just says you observe one thing, in your atmosphere, because you're always sifting, 1-7 hits. And then later on, you may see something else hit. Now it's a little more evidence. Now a third. And by the time by the second, then when the time the third 7 hits, it's time to act. You're not hesitating. You're not saying, and I run into a lot of people and they're busy saying, this is really happening. This is really happening, and that's true. It is, but like, you kind of got to live like no one's coming to save you, and you kind of got to always be ready. And I am not on here trying to teach people. When I'm, we on the Dangerous Skills whole platform, we talk about life, faith, and issues of personal security. And when I say personal security, it's about things that make you secure. Everything from firearms to the way you conduct yourself when you travel in a hotel, just all these things figure in, but like how you live your life. But I'm not trying to teach that to Navy SEALs, because there's not that many Navy SEALs out there, and not that they can't learn things, because I've known guys that taught them things. But the fact is, you must live your life in such a way. I'm trying to teach regular guys. I'm trying to teach, the regular guy out there. All I want to do is up his game or her game just a little bit. That's what I'm here to do. And every once in a while, I'll get a comment. Not that I don't read comments, but every once in a while, accidentally, something will pop up, and it'll be like, I hate your beard, or I bet you couldn't run very quickly if you got a few extra pounds. I bet you couldn't run quickly. Of course, my response is always, no, I'll stand and fight. You run.
Right.
But I just think it's so important that we could have people just stop and ask themselves, in their world, are they ready? Are they ready? Are they ready spiritually? Are they ready in their atmosphere? Are they always making themselves available to what's going on in their atmosphere? And I just really loved that. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a very important question, and this is the one you've been waiting for, I know, the one you weren't expecting, or maybe you were. Who is Taz?
Well, it splits off in two. The first part of Taz starts a friend of mine who we worked in security, nightclub security together for dozens of years. He wrote a book about our adventures. And in the chapter that had to do with me or introduced me, he said, Marcus is like the Tasmanian devil with Tourette's. Because at that time, and if you're not sure Just go and look at anything from 2016 up just before 2021 and watch any videos, and you'll see the amount of profanity that came out of my mouth. And I was just all about violence and cussing and drinking and what have you. Now, fast forward to Clint Emerson, who is a retired Navy SEAL, CIA guy, spy, and he's got these great series called 100 Deadly Skills. And thankfully, thank you, Jesus, I was asked to be a part of the book where I was teaching a whole bunch of combative skills, and there was a whole bunch of very, very important big names in that book.
Yeah,
Again,
it's
very blessed.
you know, to a lot of my viewers, that is a very, very famous book. You should look it up. It is everywhere, and almost everyone has it. It's on my read list. It was on my read list before I even knew you were in it. So,
is that right? Well, I don't blame you. It is a great one, and the version that I'm in is called 100 Deadly Skills Combat Edition. And when he came and we were figuring out times and dates, he did this all during COVID too, which was absolutely amazing because we filmed a lot of all the techniques that are everybody's portion in the book is filmed that you can get it and tap into the QR code and see the things. So he said, okay, I need a code name for you or whatever. I said, well, they call me Tasmanian Devil with Tourette's. And he goes, that's way too long. I said, well, okay. And so he just shortened it to Taz. And it's just been something that's stuck ever since.
Well, what are Taz's rules for success?
Taz's rules for success. Well, I believe that all of our success has to do with our health, right? Our health. And that literally is our soul, our mental health, our heart and lungs, our physical health, and more importantly, our spiritual health. So depending on where you're at this stage and listening to this, I can tell you right now for sure that there's something scalable that can be done to improve what you're reading. So generally, what are you ingesting, right? Book-wise, TV-wise, whatever. What are you watching and hearing? The cardiovascular, heart and lungs, these things are scalable. Walking every single day. It is being proven more and more every single day that a long walk, and long is relative to whatever you're at in this current part of your life, but a walk throughout the day, a couple of times a day, does more for you than running a marathon. Now, before anybody jumps on in the comments and starts hating on it, not everybody's a marathon runner. Not everybody was made to do that. Not everybody wants to do it. So my suggestion is always walk more than you think that you should. Walking is perfect.
Yes.
And then finding exercises, body weight exercise, whatever, that is constantly engaging you to do a little bit more.
Yes.
And lifting something heavy means lifting something heavy for you, the listener.
Right.
Don't compare. Comparison is definitely the one thing in these things that I'm talking about that we should just abolish, because it is the thief of joy. And that means the enemy loves comparison, so get rid of it.
Yes.
Don't compare your health. Don't compare your mentality. Don't compare your spirituality. All of those things mean nothing. Just try to do more than you did the day before, and that's relative to where you're at. If I'm going to 10 push-ups yesterday, and today, due to the amount of emotional struggle I'm going through, I end up doing 5. Still, 5 is better than not doing anything at all. So the success that we can have in this life really comes down to movement.
Yes.
Forward movement, preferably, but dropping down to a knee, that's still movement.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Forward movement, or movement in a direction that is keeping you away from whatever didn't work in the past. Mm-hmm. And that's my only scale is I've spent X amount of decades doing this and it didn't work. Well, you know what? I'm going to err on the side of caution and do the opposite and see what happens.
Beautiful.
And somewhere in the middle, Jesus will sit there and put you where you need to be.
Wow. Well, that's really good. You know, you really spoke to something there that really actually helped me in my day today. So I appreciate that. Thank you. About comparison. I like that. That's very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Pearson's a big fat liar.
we're going to round it up right here with a question on healing, because there's a lot of people out there that have heard what you said. Maybe they've been molested, maybe they've been hurt or harmed in other ways, maybe they've harmed themselves, it wasn't somebody else. There are people who've known pain, who are feeling pain, who have experienced hurt, you name it, to themselves, other people. I want to talk to you about healing. So just, why don't you just, the last thing we're going to talk about before we're good and done today is healing. And talk to me about your experiences with healing. Where does healing begin and where does it grow to? Where does it, I won't say end, because maybe it never ends, but where does it begin and how does it follow?
Our first part in healing for anything needs to be the acknowledgement of the fact that you're hurt. Denial is not just a river in Egypt anymore. It is imperative that we say, and for people who have been violated, it's a lot easier because there's an actual thing, like an actual physical thing. However, if you were raised and called all sorts of names your entire life, so there was no actual physical hurt, but you were
emotional.
I can only talk about myself, called a dumb cough or stupid or useless, useful tits on a bull. That was a good one. All of these things are little cuts that are going to, and when I put cuts, it makes it easier for the listener or viewer to say, okay, well, I understand a cut.
Yeah.
So, you know, you have a slash and you have a stab, right? Those are the two different types of pokey stabby things. So those little cuts, the fact that you just sit there and you wipe it away or you put a little Band-Aid on it, but you don't actually deal with it, all of a sudden it gets infected and festers, and then it ends up becoming something bigger than it initially needed to be. So I ask everybody and myself, when I'm pointing to others, I'm pointing back at me, to acknowledge, first of all, what it was that hurt you. That's the hardest part for most people to do, acknowledging that it actually hurt them.
Right.
And whether you're a believer or not a believer, it's imperative that you give that hurt its appropriate place. Put it on a shelf, put it somewhere, and say, you're not a part of me right now. And that's why I continually will say, the lies of the past have nothing to do with the truths of today. Whatever was said back then is not the person you are today. And the only reason it's coming back is because we are holding on to it and using it as a definition of who we are.
Wow.
I am a person molested. I am the child of an alcoholic. I'm not any of those things. I have that in my past. To heal, I need to open it up, scrub it with some disinfectant and some type of cool first aid stuff that I'm not really privy to, and then put a healthy seal over it so that it will heal, because God made us to be able to heal. And in that healing, more times than not, if you'll be an open ear for someone else who's also in pain, you now, with your healing, have the ability to help someone else in their current place of healing, which helps me heal deeper. And I, like you did say, I believe that we're never fully healed. I know that Jesus has healed us. But as we're on this earth, in this fleshly body, we are going to be in a constant state of healing something in our lives. And then when I get to heaven, I'll be fully healed 100 million trillion %, and I don't have to worry about it. I probably won't worry about it. But on earth right now, my job is to take whatever pain I have, bring it out to you, share it with you, so in transparency, which helps the healing internal. And maybe, God willing, you'll feel safe enough with me that you can talk and we can together heal together. Thank you, Jesus, for being able to work through us into other people and vice versa.
I like that. So I didn't mean to tell you that was it, because I got one more because of something you said. So
okay, well, if my crescendo sucks, let's just keep it where it was right there.
It's beautiful, beautiful answer. So from pain to life experience to transformation to healing and a world where you don't like labels, but you seem to like definitions. Just kind of define yourself and your life and your mission right now.
That's a very good question. I am not my past.
Yeah.
Jesus has been with me this entire time. And when he was ready, he said, all right, it's time for you and I to get on the same page. And events happened, which brought me to Jesus. And I did things all sorts of backwards, according to the theological way of doing things. At 51, 52, I came to Jesus. And my testimony is I am not my past, and I can look back and see that he has been with me the entire time. And if he's been with me, then he's been with you.
Yeah.
And if he's been with you, then you just need to, when the time you feel like you can just ask him a quick question, like, why in the fig Newton has this been going on, and start a dialogue. So I'm not my past.
That's great. And I'm going to tell you something.
I'm a child of God.
I can't think of any better place to end our time today. And we have been talking with Marcus Torgerson, and I love this. It's not that I forgot your name. I just wanted to look at I love the cover of this book. Be a Man, What the Firetruck Does That Even Mean? And we're thrilled to have him with us today. And thank you for watching the Dangerous Skills Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Powell.